Assalamu alaikum students, here is Usama Tahir and you're watching Learn English with Usama Tahir. I hope you guys are fine and enjoying my video lectures and as well enjoying the blessings of Ramazan Kareem. So students, today I am going to revise the concept that was very famous in the language teaching, which is known as communicative language teaching, which was very famous and still in use in most parts of the world. Okay. Communicative language teaching, a language teaching approach that changed the course of teaching by replacing all other traditional approaches. We have multiple approaches. We have discussed them like direct method, grammar translation method. We have discussed the audiolingual method. Right now, I'm going to talk about communicative language teaching. Okay, first of all, you need to understand that this approach was fantabulous, that it has and it had replaced all the other traditional methodologies and procedures of teaching second languages. This method was very popular from the very beginning and still very popular in its modified forms. So what is communicative language teaching? Let's discuss its history. It was started in late 1960s. Okay, it was started as a response of situational language teaching, the method we discussed earlier in the previous video lecture. So every method came into being as a response of another method. So this method, communicative language teaching method, came into being as a response of oral approach and situational language teaching. Okay, response to replaced all other traditional methods. This method became ultra popular, guys, that it has replaced all other traditional methodologies of language teaching like grammar translation method, direct method, audiolingual method, oral approach and situational language teaching. It has replaced and had replaced all the other methodologies because of its merits, because it was very advantageous and was very popular, because very easy and natural way to teach second language. Okay, Noam Chomsky theory of performance and competence in language gave rise to CLT. Okay, Noam Chomsky, a great linguist, was working on the theory of performance and competence. What was the theory of performance and competence? That every individual has the knowledge of the language is called competence, and if individual has the knowledge and has the ability that how to use that knowledge, then this would be called performance. We have so many individuals around the world who has proper knowledge about grammar, structure, everything, like they are competent in language, but their performance is zero. They don't know how to use that structure. They have no idea how they can use their knowledge to communicate. They are bad at communication but very good at the competence. So this is how Noam Chomsky's theory was integrated with that communicative language teaching. Attracted the kind of learner who are not willing to devote multiple years to learn language. Not every individual, guys, have multiple years to spend and then learn a second language. For example, grammar translation method was very tedious, time taking. Similarly, other methods were. So communicative language teaching and this approach was not that much time taking and was easy for the new learners who hasn't got so much time to spend to learn a second language. They just want to fulfill their need within no time. Next is, what is communicative language teaching? Sorry for my bad voice. I am having a little problem in my throat. Okay, what is communicative language teaching? Okay, first of all, we discussed the historical roots of that approach, that how it was started, why it was started, and what were the consequences. Now we are going to discuss what is communicative language teaching and what are those features that distinguish this approach from other approaches. Okay, first of all, teaching approach emphasizes. Okay, this is a teaching approach that emphasizes the ability to communicate the meaning of the message instead of concentrating on the grammatical perfection, like in grammar translation method. Even in the oral approach and situational language teaching, we had so much concern and we have given so much importance to the grammatical perfection. But in that CLT method, communicative language method, the emphasis is given to the communicative abilities, to the content of the message, rather than the grammatical features and the grammatical correctness. So grammatical correctness is subsided, and the communication skills and the content of the message is given the proper weightage and is given the priority. So this method will go according to this. The communicative approach emphasizes the ability to communicate the message in terms of its meaning instead of concentrating exclusively on grammatical perfection or phonetics. We are not so much concerned even with the sounds. Even comprehensible average pronunciation will also be accepted. That if your pronunciation is not 100% but 60% or 65% that the other people can understand, then your pronunciation is okay. Okay, language is evaluated in terms of how much the learner have developed their communicative abilities and competence. So language is not going to be measured, or language ability is not going to be measured that how much you are good at making sentences or how much you are good at correct grammar, but rather the fact that how much you are good at using the language and to communicate and to convey your message. So if you're okay to convey your message rather with the broken grammar or with you can say the broken sentences, you are okay in the communicative language teaching, because this method had the revolutionary ideology that language is not like the structure, but it's the tool to communicate. It's the tool to associate meanings with the words and not with the just going for the grammatical correctness. This method was totally unique and totally different from all other methods. So that's why this method or this approach, you can say, replaced all the other approaches or the methodologies in language teaching. So what was the theory of language in that method? Communication. Language was seen as the source, as the tool to communicate. Language was taken as something through which or something by which you can communicate. Language is not seen as like the combination of structures. Language is not seen as the grammatical having the grammatical features, sounds. No, language is only seen, or language was only seen as the tool through which you can communicate. So that method was totally simple in that manner, that if you're able to communicate in the target language with broken grammar, with okay pronunciation, with the average pronunciation, you are okay, you're ready to go, you're ready to mingle. Okay, theory of language learning. What was the theory of language learning in that approach? Is language is learned in authentic real life communication environment. What do we mean by authentic? Authentic means real like. If something is authentic, we say this is like real, this is quite practical. If something is quite practical and related to the real life, for example, writing a tedious letter to your parent asking for the money is not something real like. But if the teacher says you have to write a letter to your brother who is abroad and you want him to take the you want him to brought the Xbox for you, this is like the practical situation that would interest the student. And rather than assigning students to write a letter, like to learn from the grammar book and write them down as it is, this is not authentic. But if you give the authentic situation and let them write on the practical concept, on the practical topic, then that would be authentic. The situation should be real like, should be like real. You're in a situation where you have to order food for 10 person. This is the authentic situation. You are not going to memorize anything from the grammar book. You are not supposed to memorize something. This is the authentic communicative environment example. What are the key features of this method? I will not explain them so much in detail because you are going to understand by yourself, because I have explained this method enough. Key feature, the first one is understanding occurs through active student interaction in the foreign language. The students will interact in the foreign language, in the target language within the classroom, and through this interaction and the conversations in the classroom, students will learn the new language. Next is teaching occurs by using authentic English text. English text would not be like the old traditional text, but the authentic real life text, like I am going to order food for 10 person, or I'm going to the shop, you are going to the shop, there is a situation and you have to write the dialogue between the shopkeeper and you. So this is how the authentic English text will be written by you or will be given to you. This is how you are going to learn the language in an authentic way, so that you can use the language practically in the future. Like no bookish knowledge, you can say no bookish stuff, right? There would be no bookish stuff. Next is students not only learn the second language, but they also learn strategies for understanding. Like strategies will also taught to them, that what kind of different pronunciations will be encountered by you and how you can comprehend them. Like you have to cope up with all the miserable situation that you can face in learning the new language. So these strategies are taught to the students. Importance is given to learners' personal experiences and situations which are considered as an invaluable contribution to the content of the lesson. Students' own knowledge, students' background knowledge, their experiences in something will be regarded as something very important in learning the target language, because this approach is student centered. Students are obliged, students are privileged, and their experiences are respected so that their experiences can be incorporated in learning a new language. For example, you can say a student, please stand up and explain your experience of the intermediate session in this college in target language. The students' personal experiences and the situations are given so much importance that they are the model on which they are going to use the language. Next is using the new language's unrehearsed context to create learning opportunities outside the classroom. There would be no rehearsal and that would be candid use. Like suddenly you will say a student to get up and talk about something, or to discuss with other students, or to make the question answer session, or to have the interviews, or to talk about a situation like that. It would be unrehearsed and it would be totally, you can say, natural, and students would make mistakes, errors, whatever, and they will learn from these errors, and they will inductive learning grammar method would be there, that they are going to learn the grammar, a bit about grammar through this, because grammar is not given weightage in that or priority in learning the communicative language teaching. Next is CLT, meaning is paramount. In CLT, in a communication language teaching, meaning is paramount. Meaning is important rather than form. I mean, in theory of language, we have two things, whether meaning or rather the structure. And this method talks about the meaning. This method or this approach talks about something more than the structure, which is meaning, which is context. Dialogues, if used, centered around communicative function and are not normally memorized like in audiolingual method. For example, I need to give you the example from audiolingual method, so that would help you to understand what I'm talking about dialogues. Like in audiolingual method, students, you're supposed to memorize the scripted dialogues and use them in the mechanical way. But in CLT method, it is never going to be like that, because you are going to use the language in a practical, natural way. So dialogues, if presented, they would be centered around the communicative functions they perform. For example, if there are dialogues about purchasing something from the shop, and the dialogues will having the ability that they perform some function like asking price, like asking for the colors, like deciding something, like asking shopkeeper's attention. These are different functions we perform through language. We talk through language and we perform different functions, like we say sorry, we give commands, we request someone, we ask questions, we recommend something, we argue to someone, we give advice to someone. So these functions are performed through language. So the dialogues would be attached to those functions. Like in that dialogues, there would be a certain functions that are going to be performed, like there would be a conversation between shopkeeper and customer. There would be different functions performed within the dialogues, like asking for price, or for asking for the way, even if the two citizens are on the road, and the situation would be provided by the teacher in that way. Next is contextualization is the basic concern. Okay, language is the name of a tool. Language is name of something that you use in the context. Context can be different. It can be physical, it can be psychological. Like physical, you are in the classroom, your language would be different. You are in this you are in home, at house, your language would be different. So similarly, your context is given higher priority in learning the language. You are not supposed to use the same sentence in every situation. I mean, if you're a 5-star restaurant, you would use, would you like to give me a cup of tea? And if you're just in a normal restaurant, you can say, give me a cup of tea. There is difference in the context, in the situation you are in. And if you want to say something to your elder, your language and your sentence and your lexical choices would be different, rather than if you're saying something to who is younger than you, right? This is contextualization is taught. Next is language learning, meaning learning to communicate. The way you can communicate is the way you learn the language. If you're okay in the communication, and if you can communicate in the target language, rather your grammar is bad, still you're good at it, then your language has been learned. Effective communication is established, the same point. Drilling may occur but not too often, like drilling like an audiolingual method. You can ask students to drill about something or to practice some dialogues, but not too often. Comprehensible pronunciation is sought. I mean, not 100% pronunciation is expected, but like normal pronunciation, which is average, which can be intelligible, which can be understandable by others, is okay in that method. Any device can be used that could help learner varying according to his age interest. I mean, any device. The visual aids can be used, like the interviews can be used, the the cartoons can be used. I mean, depend on the age and the interest. So you are like on the free hand. You can use anything you like. Just your goal is to make them communicatively successful in using their language. Communication skills are given importance right from the beginning. From the very start, communication is emphasized. Native language use is allowed if visible. I mean, you are not totally you can say stopped by using your native language. You can use it depending on the situation if it's visible. Translations can also be used where students need and benefits from it. I mean, if it saves time and if it's okay for them and if it saves them from so much hard work and tedious situation, then it's okay to translate a concept in their native language. Writing and reading can start from the first day if desired. So all four skills will be given priority. Writing and reading can start from the first day. We are not going to delay these skills like we delayed in audiolingual or in other methods. Communicative competence is the desired goal, that how much you have the knowledge to communicate. Linguistic competence means you have the knowledge of the language. Okay, but if you don't have the communicative competence, like if you don't have the knowledge how to communicate by using language, then what is the use of that linguistic competence? Language competence means to know language, but communicative competence means to know how to use language. So these are 2 points. Like if you know the language, that's not enough. If you know how to use language, that is the key. Language learning is how easily you can use it or how much you are struggling in using it to communicate, rather than just knowing grammar and structure. Knowing grammar and structure is not enough in that method, right? You need to understand that you need to communicate in this school world. You need to communicate in the practical world. You are not going to just showcase your grammatical correctness, that how you are good at writing skills, how are you good at grammatical features or grammatical elements. No, you need to communicate. You need to use English or whatever language you're learning for the purpose of communication in future. Language is created by students often through trial and errors. So language is created by errors. Fluency and acceptable language is primary goal. Accuracy is judged only in the context. So accuracy is given importance but less than fluency and acceptable language. Fluency is given priority over accuracy sometimes because you need to be fluent in the real world. You have not so much time to think when you are in the practical situation about the grammatical correctness or about the grammatical features. You just need to convey your message. Students will communicate with other fellows through discussions, writing, and other means. Native or target language will be simultaneously used. Interest and motivation is aroused through content that language will convey. Your content that you are giving to students, being a teacher, should be interesting, that it should encourage and motivate them. Okay, one of the biggest misconception about CLT method is some consider this approach to be method in which conversation is the only mean to teach language, which is absolutely wrong. Rather, this approach talks about learning language in interactive, cooperative, learner-centered and content-based, but the approach does not mean that learning a second language involves just conversation. Some people think that this method is like tararara, you just need to communicate, you just need to converse, you just need to make a conversation. No, things aren't that easy for a learner. Things are not that simple. You will be given content, you will have the activities, you will have the proper situation, then you will use communicative abilities, then there is a small portion that is given to conversation, but not only the conversation will be in the CLT method, there would be different other things. There will be writing skills will be taught, reading skills will be taught, you are given the proper overview of things. You are going to use language in the natural manner, in the practical manner, but not only the conversation will be conducted in that method. So this conception should be eradicated. National functional syllabus was used in that method. I pronounced it wrong. Notional functional syllabus was used. What was Notional Syllabus? 1972 is a proposal for teaching of language created by D.A. Wilkins and also proposed by Van Eyck and Alexander in 1975. What was in that Notional functional syllabus that was given by D.A. Wilkins and others? The notional functional approach in English as a second language is a way of structuring a syllabus around notions, real life situations. I mean, there is a notion, there would be an idea in which people communicate. Like idea can be shopping, and which are further broken down into functions. Now, for example, there is an idea, there is a notion shopping. Okay. And what would be the communicative function in the shopping? You will go to the shop, you will get the attention by using language, you will ask the prices by using language, you will negotiate the price by using language, you will ask about the quality by using language, you will, you know, command the shopkeeper that give me this by using language. So in single Notion you will have multiple functions to perform. Okay, this is how you use a language. For example, job interview is a Notion. Now communicative function would be, teacher would be as job interviewer would ask your abilities, your weaknesses, would ask, would, you know, different functions would be performed about how was your last experience, why did you leave your previous job, where did you live, and you will perform different functions by using language. If you are in the if you're in dialogue class, or if you are playing a role play, something like that. When designing a lesson, teacher in this role often choose a real world situation. Real world situation, like I told you about shopping. This is a real world situation which can be known as the Notion. Okay, this is the thing. And choose corresponding function to teach, to prepare students to lesson might be about how to buy something at a shop, in which cases Notion is shopping, and one of its function might be asking prices, or there would be different other functions as well. Shopping is the Notion. Okay, customer to shopkeeper getting attention, you can get attention by using the structure excuse me. Customer to shopkeeper asking a price, you will use a sentence how much is this, singular noun. Customer to shopkeeper asking a price, how much are these, asking about different prices, more than one thing. Customer to shopkeeper buying, I'll take this, like the function is buying. Customer to shopkeeper buying, I'll take these, for the plural. Negotiating, it seems a little expensive, because you want to negotiate, you want the shopkeeper to lower the price. Negotiating, that sound a little high. Negotiating, I mean, you can use different sentences for the single function, na? Could you give me a discount? It's a direct method. Refusing to buy, I'll think about it. Suggesting an opinion, maybe we should look at, like let's go with making a choice. So different functions are performed, but Notion would be same. Strong and weak version of communicative language teaching. There are two versions in communicative language teaching. However, distinguish it between strong and the weak version of CLT. Mostly we use here nowadays is the weak version of CLT. The strong version claims that language is acquired through communication, while the weak version, which has become standard practice nowadays, stresses the importance of using the language for communicative purpose within a wider program of language teaching. In other words, while the weak version means learning to use a language, you will be taught how can you use a language, but the strong version is like totally natural, like that, using the language to learn it, like use a language without taking notes, without taking concept, without having the background knowledge, just use a language so that you can learn to communicate, and to communicate to learn language. So there are two ways: first knowing language and then to communicate, first knowing to communicate and then to use language. These are two methods. Strong CLT learners learn by being involved in communicative tasks with little support from traditional teaching and practices. If there is no traditional teachings and practices, this is the strong CLT. And if there is emphasis on speaking, listening, you are given notes, text, practice is given, performed, then this is a weak CLT, and we perform this, we are stick to this. So activities can be role plays, there can be drama that could be performed by the students, and there would be different communicative functions. In the dialogues they will be allotted, they will be assigned, so this can be an activity. Interviews can be conducted to improve their communicative abilities. Information gap is an activity where there are two candidates or more than two, and they have the paper, both of them, and a little information is missed in the A member, which is present in the B members sheet, and some information is absent in the B member sheet, which is present in the A members sheet. So they will negotiate and communicate with each other to fill that gap that is missed between these two candidates, and that can be fulfilled by other person's sheet. So they can ask questions, they will communicate in that way, and their communication abilities will get better. Opinion sharing, you can ask opinions, you can ask opinion about women empowerment, and in that way they can communicate. So conclusion is, this approach is popular due to its good results, because that it has given a lot of good results because of its communicative approach, and having active role for students to encourage him to get better at communication skills, because it was student centered. Students were very happy and satisfied with that method, target language, which was ignored by other traditional methods. So other traditional methods were ignoring the target language use, communicative use of target language. So this method emphasized on it, and the basic principle was on the communicative use of the target language. So this method was okay and was very successful. So that was all today in this video lecture, and if you have any question, if any query, you can ask me in the comment section. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.